The storm rolled over the ruins of Eris 7, churning the sky into molten bruises of black and red. High atop a collapsed church spire, Elias Creed lay prone, wrapped in a shredded camouflage cloak. He adjusted the weather-beaten scope of his M2019 bolt-action sniper rifle, a museum piece by Galactic standards, and waited. Through the cracked lens, he watched them, soldiers of the Coalition's 5th Expeditionary Legion, gleaming in chrome armor, weapons buzzing with caged lightning. They moved like conquerors, casual, indifferent, sure of their superiority. One squad passed under his crosshairs. Their leader, an alien with the spidered features of a Threxer officer, barked orders that filtered through the translator bead in Elias's ear. Secure perimeter. Primitive threats negligible. Elias smiled without humor. Primitive. Right. He shifted slightly, breath shallow, heart steady. The crosshairs settled over the officer's head. A gust rattled the broken stone around him. He adjusted half a click for wind. His finger found the trigger, cold, familiar, patient. The rifle kicked gently. A sharp crack split the air. The officer's head snapped back in a mist of green blood. His body folded, collapsing mid-stride. For a heartbeat, none of the others moved. Then panic ignited. Shouts filled the street below as soldiers dove for cover behind rubble, shields flaring uselessly. Elias chambered the next round with a quiet, mechanical rhythm. No lasers, no sensors. Just a bullet, pure, simple death moving faster than sound. He shifted position before the first blind plasma blast tore into the tower's corpse. Down on the street, a communications officer screamed into a wrist comm. Ambush! Repeat, ambush! Energy weapons ineffective! Elias crawled backward, keeping low, ghosting through shadows. He didn't need to hear the response to know what it would be. Commander Vrax Talzor would never tolerate being embarrassed. He smiled grimly. Let them send more. 3 kilometers east, under a makeshift shelter of twisted steel, a group of colonists huddled around an old transmitter. Static buzzed angrily. Their leader, a wiry woman named Cass Vedran, twisted the dial with desperate fingers. We caught the signal. He's active, she muttered. A younger man beside her, bruised and bloodied, clutched a child to his chest. One man isn't enough. They'll burn us all. Cass didn't argue. She keyed the transmitter, speaking into the void. Ghosts, if you're out there, we need you. They're hunting civilians now. They're not even pretending. The line stayed silent. A heartbeat. 2. Then, a short burst of static, and 3 slow clicks. Cass exhaled. It was enough. Commander Vrax stood on the observation deck of his mobile command fortress, arms crossed, disgust curling his lips. A kinetic weapon? He snarled, watching the replay from a battlefield drone. The grainy image showed his officer's death in brutal clarity. A flash, a fall, chaos. Barbaric. An insult. His adjutant, a pale-skinned Caldraci, dared a cautious suggestion. Commander, reports indicate electromagnetic instability is interfering with our energy weapons. Old-world methods may prove. Vrax cut him off with a glare that could shatter bone. We are the future. We adapt. Find this relic and crush him. Orders rippled through the ranks. Expand patrols, increase drone coverage, deploy thermal seekers. A single human, a footnote of a species, would not derail the Coalition's manifest destiny. Not on Vrax's watch. Night fell like a smothering hand. Elias crouched near a shattered fountain, unwrapping a ration bar with practiced fingers. His joints ached from days without proper rest, but his mind remained razor-sharp. He listened to the city breathe, the creak of stressed metal, the moan of shifting stone, the distant thrum of alien patrols. He finished eating and cleaned the rifle carefully, methodically. Ritual mattered. In a world of chaos, the small things kept you human. Movement flickered at the edge of the square. Elias froze, scope pressed to his eye. Through the broken fog, a young woman stumbled into view, dragging a makeshift sled piled with supplies. Behind her, small figures, children, struggled to keep up. No coalition markings. No armor. Civilians. Damn it. He weighed his options. His mission was to bleed the enemy, not babysit refugees. Engagement would slow him down. Risk exposure. Risk everything. A child's cry broke through the night air, sharp, scared, helpless. Elias swore under his breath. He slid the rifle onto his back, moved like a shadow. The woman yelped when he appeared, dropping into a defensive crouch. A battered energy pistol shook in her trembling hand. Elias raised both palms slowly, voice low. Easy. Friendlies. She hesitated, scanning him. Not a soldier. Not alien. Human. Relieved and terrified all at once. Name's Cass, she said hoarsely. We're trying to reach the old tunnels. They said someone would help. Elias glanced toward the deeper ruins. No cover. No safe approach. Coalition patrols would sweep through within the hour. You're late, he said dryly. Come on. No arguments. No wasted breath. Cass rallied the children, and together they slipped into the night. Far above, orbiting satellites flagged new movements on Eris 7's surface. Inside the command fortress, alarms pulsed. Commander Vrax watched the grainy footage, the sniper's blurred outline herding civilians toward shelter. His face darkened with fury. A hero, he sneered. Even better. Heroes die louder. He turned to his officers, voice a cold blade. I want the earth scorched. Every ruin, every tunnel. Nothing survives the night. The hunt had just become a war. The night bled into a thin, gray dawn as Elias led Cass and the children through the skeletal remains of Eris 7's industrial district. Smoke curled from distant craters. Every step deeper into the ruins tightened the noose around them. Coalition patrols moved methodically now, less overconfident, more cautious. They had learned fear. Elias stopped at a collapsed rail bridge overlooking a narrow choke point. Perfect. He knelt, opening a battered satchel and pulling out supplies, old fusion mines, a manual detonator, scraps of wiring. Cass hovered uncertainly nearby. What are you doing? She whispered. He threaded a tripwire through the rubble without looking up. Teaching a lesson. Movement stirred in the distance, a silver glint of armor, the hum of grav sleds. Elias finished setting the mines, then motioned Cass and the children into a half-buried drainage pipe. Tight, filthy, but it would keep them out of sight. Elias stayed above, tucked behind shattered stone, rifle steady across his knees. He counted the approaching soldiers, 2 squads, moving slow, scanning every corner. One officer shouted, voice sharp with nervousness. He is near! Keep shields up! Scan for projectile anomalies! Elias smiled grimly. Shields wouldn't help. He waited. Breathed. Watched. The lead soldier triggered the tripwire. A silent click. Then hell erupted. The mines blasted upward, tearing into the squad with metal shrapnel. Shields overloaded instantly, flickering and collapsing. Armor bent like paper. Screams ripped the air. Disoriented survivors stumbled into Elias's sights. He fired once. A clean shot. A head snapped sideways, blood misting into the rising smoke. The remaining soldiers panicked, firing wild plasma bolts into empty air. The ruins answered with echoes, mocking them. 2 tried to retreat. Elias dropped them without hesitation. In under 3 minutes, the entire patrol was broken. Cass and the children emerged from the pipe, faces pale. The youngest clung to her side, staring at the carnage. Elias approached, checking bodies with clinical efficiency. He scavenged what he could, energy cells, medkits, scraps of armor that might be reworked into shielding. He ignored the eyes watching him. Cass found her voice first. You're just one man. He shrugged. That's usually enough. One of the boys, older, bolder, stepped forward. Are you a soldier? Elias paused, considering. Used to be. Now I'm just necessary. Cass wiped soot from her face. They're going to send more. They always do. He turned, scanning the horizon. Drones buzzed faintly overhead, they'd be triangulating soon. Staying here was death. We move! Fast! Elsewhere, deep in the command fortress, Commander Vrax watched the latest disaster unfold across a flickering holomap. Red blips representing coalition troops winked out one by one. His jaw clenched. How? He snarled. His intelligence officer, sweating beneath Vrax's glare, fumbled for an answer. Commander, the insurgent utilizes primitive explosives, undetectable by our sensors. He leverages environmental advantages. Incompetence, Vrax hissed. That's what I see. Deploy the harvesters. I want this sector razed. Commander, the officer hesitated. The collateral. Not my concern. Within minutes, black shapes rose from the fortress. Harvesters, autonomous machines designed to flatten resistance by simply obliterating everything in their path. The hunting game was over. It was now genocide. Elias felt the rumble through the earth before he saw them, massive treaded machines rolling through the city's outskirts, flattening ruins, firing indiscriminately into anything that moved. He cursed under his breath. Cass saw them too and grabbed his arm. We can't outrun that! No, Elias agreed grimly, slinging his rifle over his back. We hit it first. Cass gaped at him. You're insane. Probably. He jerked his head toward an abandoned magrail station nearby. I need metal. Wiring. Batteries. If you can find anything that sparks, bring it. Without waiting for argument, he sprinted toward the station. Inside, the place was a graveyard of twisted tracks and rusted trains. Elias worked fast, stripping copper wiring, salvaging spent power cells. He rigged a crude device, a magnetic spike launcher tied to jury-rigged explosives. When Cass returned, arms laden with parts, he was already setting traps along the main approach. How is that supposed to stop that? She asked, breathless. It won't. Elias adjusted a fuse timer carefully. But it'll trip its armor sensors. Make it think it's under plasma bombardment. And the Coalition designed those machines to defend against energy weapons. Not magnets. Not gravity. He flashed a tight, wolfish grin. Their own programming will rip them apart. The first harvester rolled into view minutes later, a monstrous silhouette against the burning skyline. Elias triggered the first launcher. A spike embedded itself in the harvester's flank, warping its field sensors. It recoiled, confused, spinning in place. The second launcher hit lower, near the treads. Sparks erupted. System shrieked warnings. The machine turned on itself, firing heavy plasma bolts into its own body. Elias didn't wait. He signaled Cass and the children to run. The harvester collapsed in a screaming shower of molten debris. They pushed hard through the ruins, breath ragged, feet bleeding. Coalition forces would converge soon. Cass stumbled beside Elias, her voice ragged. How long can you keep doing this? Elias didn't slow. As long as it takes. They reached the mouth of the old metro tunnels by nightfall. Black, yawning, forgotten? Inside, it would be dark. Cold. Dangerous. But it was a place to survive. As they slipped into the shadows, distant thunder rolled across the dead city, not from the weather this time, but from the roar of an empire enraged. Elias chambered a fresh round and disappeared into the dark. The tunnels swallowed them whole, smothering the outside world behind layers of rusted metal and crumbling concrete. Every step echoed like a gunshot in the stale, damp air. Elias moved ahead, rifle cradled lightly, senses flaring with every creak and breath. Cass and the children followed closely, their faces ghostly in the faint light of a salvaged lantern. Fear clung to them heavier than the darkness. Stay close. Stay quiet, Elias whispered, voice low but firm. Ahead, the tunnel split into veins of forgotten maintenance shafts and abandoned metro lines. Perfect terrain for ambushes. Or traps. He knelt beside a corroded access panel, pulling loose a nest of dead wiring. As he worked, Cass knelt beside him. They'll come down here, won't they? She asked. He didn't look up. They'll flood these tunnels like rats from a drowning ship. She swallowed hard. Then why are we still here? He twisted the last wire into place and stood. Because sometimes it's better to be the wolf in the dark. Far above, in the gilded command center of the fortress, Vrax Talzor loomed over a new holomap. A glowing web of tunnel schematics rotated slowly before him. Each entrance blinked with tracking signatures, seismic sensors, heat readers, sonic pings. No matter how deep the humans ran, he would find them. He jabbed a clawed finger at the map. Deploy the bloodhounds. His officers hesitated. Even the Coalition's elite tracking units were cautious of the bloodhounds, genetically engineered beasts of war, grown for one purpose: to sniff out and destroy. Release them, Brax repeated, voice like ice breaking. Minutes later, deep below, the ground began to tremble. Elias heard it first, a low, unnatural vibration. The children froze. Cass gripped the lantern tighter. What is that? She whispered. Elias's jaw tightened. Trouble. They moved faster now, darting between maintenance alcoves and collapsed tunnels. The walls grew tighter, the air thicker. Moisture dripped from broken pipes. Somewhere behind them, the tremors grew louder, punctuated by a bone-chilling howl that didn't sound entirely alive. They weren't dealing with soldiers anymore. At a sharp bend in the tunnel, Elias stopped them. He scanned the branching paths. One led deeper into the old industrial underworks, unstable, flooded, unpredictable. The other stayed dry but open, exposed. Cass glanced nervously between the two. Which way? He made the decision instantly. Flooded. They plunged into the dark waters without hesitation. The cold bit into their skin. Waist deep at first, then chest deep. The youngest child whimpered, but Cass shushed him gently. Behind them, a low growl echoed through the dry tunnel, too close. The bloodhound broke into view seconds later, massive, sinewed, its hide a patchwork of metal and flesh. Multiple eyes glowed red in the gloom. It sniffed the air, snarling. It couldn't smell them through the water. Not yet. Elias motioned for silence, raising a hand. His other hand slid to his belt, pulling a small cylindrical object, an old sonic emitter. He dialed the setting low and lobbed it into the dry tunnel. The device clattered once, twice. The bloodhound reacted instantly, lunging after the noise, its hunting instincts overriding its programming. Elias didn't wait. Move! He hissed. They pushed through the water, bodies aching, lungs burning. Hours passed in fits and starts, running, hiding, listening. Coalition patrols swept the tunnels now, shouting orders, sweeping lights cutting through the dark. Elias led them deeper, weaving through ancient service routes. But the further they went, the more the tunnels betrayed them, sudden drops, cave-ins, flooding. During a brief pause, Cass leaned against the wall, chest heaving. We can't keep this up. The kids... Elias checked his rifle. They're doing better than half the soldiers I fought with. Cass smiled weakly, but the fear in her eyes didn't fade. They reached an old maintenance hub, a wide circular chamber lined with broken machinery and rusted scaffolding. A perfect place to rest, or a perfect place for a trap. Elias circled the room carefully before waving the others inside. Cass sat heavily against the wall, wrapping the children in salvaged thermal blankets. Elias crouched at the entrance, rifle resting across his knees. Cass watched him for a moment, then said quietly, You're not doing this just for us, are you? He didn't answer immediately. In the darkness, his face looked carved from stone. No, he said finally. I'm doing it because they think they can take whatever they want. Erase whoever doesn't fit. He met her gaze, voice low. They need to learn they can bleed too. The lesson started sooner than expected. A faint metallic click echoed down the tunnel, a patrol, moving carefully, smarter now. Elias motioned Cass to gather the children against the far wall. He moved into the shadows, rifle braced. The first soldier came into view, helmeted, scanning with a pulse rifle. Elias waited, breath slow. The second soldier followed, eyes darting nervously. Elias exhaled. One shot, the rear soldier dropped silently. Before the first could react, A second shot shattered his visor, ending it. Clean. Precise. But more footsteps echoed behind them. No more time. Elias fired into the ceiling supports. The old steel beams, already weakened by age, gave way with a shriek of tortured metal. The tunnel collapsed behind them in a roaring avalanche of stone and dust, sealing off the entrance. Cass coughed through the debris cloud. That'll slow them down? Long enough. Elias didn't mention how thin the remaining tunnels were now. No easy exits. Nowhere to run if they cornered them. This wasn't survival anymore. It was war. Deep in the bowels of the Coalition fortress, Vrax watched the collapse footage, lips curling into a snarl. He slammed his fist into the console, denting it. Enough games. He turned to his chief engineer. Deploy the pulse. The engineer paled. Commander, the structural. I said deploy it. Within minutes, a new weapon began its journey into the tunnels, a seismic pulse generator capable of shaking the very bones of the earth apart. Vrax didn't care if it collapsed the whole city, so long as the relic died screaming. Far underground, Elias felt the first tremor roll through the earth like a warning. He tightened his grip on the rifle and whispered to himself. Time to end this. The first seismic pulse hit like a giant's hammer. The tunnel walls shuddered, old stone grinding against itself. Dust rained down in choking clouds. Pipes ruptured, spewing ancient, sour-smelling gases. Elias Creed staggered but stayed upright, dragging the children and Cass toward a side shaft. The pulse was a warning, not the kill yet, but the next one wouldn't be. Cass clutched the youngest child tighter. How do we outrun an earthquake? We don't, Elias said. We outrun them. He pointed up, a rusted maintenance ladder climbing into blackness. Move! Cass didn't hesitate. She hoisted the smallest up first, climbing with raw, desperate strength. Elias shoved the rest after her, then slung his rifle and followed. Another pulse rumbled below, closer, angrier. They emerged into a shattered sublevel, some forgotten depot filled with skeletal shipping containers and rotting crates. Light filtered down from broken vents high above, casting sharp beams across the ruin. Breathless, Elias scanned the area. Exposed. No cover. No time. Through the cracked ceiling he glimpsed the Coalition fortress, close now, its towers clawing the sky, black against the bleeding red of dawn. Elias made his decision. He turned to Cass. Take them. North side. There's a drainage outlet. Follow the riverbed. Stay low. Cass grabbed his sleeve. You're coming too. He shook his head. They're after me, not you. As long as I breathe, they'll chase. She stared at him, realization dawning. Elias, don't. He smiled once, sharp and tired. Old soldiers don't get happy endings. Before she could argue, he turned and disappeared into the debris. Commander Vrax stood atop the observation platform, staring down at the city ruins like a god surveying his dominion. Prepare orbital cleansing, he ordered. I want this entire sector erased. His officers relayed commands with mechanical efficiency. The pulse would flush the prey into the open. The orbit cannons would finish it. Vrax's clawed hand tightened around the rail. Victory was inevitable. Elias moved with a predator's grace, weaving through the broken cityscape. His lungs burned. His left side ached from old wounds torn open again by the tremors. Blood soaked his shirt, sticky and hot. He didn't care. He reached an old comms tower half buried in rubble. The perfect perch. He set the rifle down, pulled a battered scope from his pocket, and scanned the fortress. Vrax stood in plain view, surrounded by guards, drinking in his presumed triumph. Too arrogant to hide. Too stupid to think the old ways still mattered. Elias chambered around. The action whispered like a prayer. Down below, Coalition forces fanned out in a tightening net, scanning, sweeping, hunting. Drones buzzed overhead. Sensors pinged. Pulse tremors cracked the earth. None of it mattered. They were looking for plasma flashes. Ion disturbances. They weren't looking for a whisper of copper and lead. Elias steadied the rifle. Calculated distance. Wind. Humidity. The tremors made it worse, but not impossible. He exhaled slowly, emptying everything else from his mind. The pain. The fatigue. Even the fear. One shot. One empire. Vrax's voice boomed across the comms. To the insurgents hiding below, hear me. Your resistance is meaningless. Your protector is dead or dying. You will kneel or you will burn. Elias smiled grimly. Not today. The crosshairs found Vrax's throat, the one place not shielded by armor. Elias squeezed the trigger. The shot split the air, sharp and merciless. Vrax staggered mid-sentence, a look of confusion flashing across his alien features. His hand reached up, almost lazily, to the sudden blossom of blood at his neck. He fell without a sound. For a heartbeat, the fortress froze. Soldiers stared, stunned. Then chaos erupted. Guards shouted, weapons drawn, scanning wildly for a threat they didn't understand. Officers barked orders. Drones spun in circles, lost without direction. The Empire's iron discipline crumbled in a single moment of raw, human violence. Elias didn't wait to see the aftermath. He dragged himself away from the tower, moving low and fast, heart hammering. He had minutes, maybe seconds, before they recalibrated, before they guessed. He needed to vanish. Pain flared in his leg with every step. Blood loss slowed him, but stubborn will kept him upright. He ducked into the ruins, slipping into shadow. Behind him, the coalition forces turned inward, blaming, fearing, breaking. Without Vrax's iron hand, their unity collapsed into paranoia. Cass reached the riverbed with the children just as the fortress cannons powered down, the threat dissipated. She turned, looking back toward the smoking ruins. Somewhere in that chaos, Elias Creed had made the impossible happen. She wiped a tear from her cheek, half grief, half awe, and kept moving, leading the next generation toward a future Elias had bought with blood and defiance. In the broken city, Elias finally collapsed inside the hollow of a dead building, breathing shallowly. He propped himself against the wall, cradling the rifle across his lap like an old friend. Overhead, the sun broke through the storm for the first time in days, painting the ruins in fierce gold. Fitting, he thought. Even in ruin, light finds a way. His eyes drifted shut, a ghost of a smile on his lips. He wasn't a relic. He was a reminder. They laughed at the old ways. They forgot it's not the weapon that kills, it's the will behind it.